Welcome! It's Facts You Don't Know. If it's your first time here and you want to find out new facts that will definitely make you smarter and more, well, and first make sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss anything.
He went to collect the bill from the table, and he realized that when he wasn't looking, the woman must have rushed out. He hoped she wouldn't have dined and dashed as he opened the leather folder, and breathed a sigh of relief as he saw the bill paid in full, right down to the last cent. But the woman had given him an offensive message instead of a tip. Disappointed when he saw the envelope, he started moving the plates away. "Well, why is that?" As he opened it, he said to himself. His eyes opened as he realized that only a dose of instant karma might have been what he held in his pocket. The day had begun as usual for 27-year-old Armando Marcage, serving tables at Harlem's busy Patsy's Pizzeria, New York City. He worked for long hours to get himself through medical school, and he prided himself on delivering the best service he could. And with a smile, he did it. Little did he know one woman was about to test her endurance to the very limit on his lunchtime shift. At Patsy's Pizzeria, Saturdays are some of the busiest periods. Throngs of diners had gathered to taste the famous pizza of the restaurant from all over the city, and Armando was able to find his hands full. It was just his poor luck that one ill-mannered woman and her daughter had arrived and were seated in his section on top of the pizzeria being filled to the rafters. The new owner of the pizzeria, Frank Brinja, is particularly proud of the legacy of the established Patsy's Pizzeria, opened in 1933. The walls are decorated with images of the famous faces and accolades of various patrons, collected painstakingly over an 86-year era. Armando found the two women had their eyes on the wall, scrutinizing every last detail as they were waiting to be served. The hard-working server saw their disappointed faces and instantly realized there was going to be a problem. Armando approached the women quickly and welcomed them with a friendly smile, and ordered 2 slices of pizzeria in New York style. So far, so good. Just as Armando turned to walk away, he was stopped by the older lady and pointedly asked a question he would never forget. Armando's been left at a loss for words, unprepared for the fight. "Why are so few images of women on the wall?" she asked, dripping venom from every word. Armando opened his mouth to speak, but there were no words. Was she just joking? She waited expectantly, and then it dawned on him that the question posed by this woman was entirely facetious, and she'd been expecting a reply. Armando chuckled nervously and stupidly tried to make a joke, but he ruined it absolutely. "Maybe women don't eat a lot of pizza?" he stammered, trying to laugh it off. The woman's eyes narrowed and her mouth turned downward into a mean sneer. She'd made up her mind, and now Armando was going to pay for answering her question so flippantly. The flustered server retreated to place the pair's order and tried not to dwell on the mean-spirited woman. After all, there were other tables that urgently needed his attention. As a server, Armando expected to have good customers and bad customers, and some were downright rude. But even if he prepared for the worst, it didn't completely take the sting out of being stiffed by rude patrons. Nevertheless, he resolved to always try his best to give all his customers equally good service. His livelihood depended on tips. He just prayed that there wouldn't be any more trouble today. But by the end of the shift, he would find himself presented with a golden opportunity to flip the situation on its head. After Armando had brought the 2 women's steaming pizza slices to the table, he quickly moved on to the next customers who were demanding his attention. When they asked for the check, he was sure to deliver it promptly, but the restaurant was getting fuller by the minute. Rushing back to collect the check after attending to another large table's orders, he was surprised to find it empty. He only prayed that the women hadn't left without paying, but when he looked inside, he found the note was far more hurtful. "Maybe women don't tip either," was obnoxiously handwritten on the receipt. Armando could barely believe his eyes. With a heavy heart, he started to clear the plates when he noticed a white envelope underneath the napkins. Curious, he opened it up and peeked inside. When he saw the Citibank logo appear, he didn't stop to think. He ran out the door to chase her down. "I just pulled up the flap and I saw Citibank and I thought it was important, so I ran out to the street to look for her, but she was gone," Armando recalled. With the woman nowhere in sight, he opened the envelope to investigate further. Inside was a check for the largest amount Armando had ever laid eyes on. The check that the rude woman had left behind on the table was for a staggering $424,000. Armando had a very big decision to make. If he wanted to, he could teach her a powerful lesson. He weighed his options carefully. On the one hand, he had the option to just throw the check away. No one would be the wiser. He could do it in the name of karma, or he could attempt to cash it and his money troubles would be over. On the other hand, either decision would make him just as mean-spirited as the woman who had ruined his day. What would you do? After thinking carefully about his moral dilemma, Armando did what most of us would have done. He called Frank Brinja, owner of Patsy's, and put the check's fate in his hands. He called me immediately and hands me this check, and I was like, oh my. I didn't want to put it in my pocket, it was so much money, Frank explains. We thought for sure it was a billionaire or something who came in here, because who walks around with a check like that? Normally we just put things left behind and lost and found in the back, but I wasn't going to do that with almost $500,000, Armando explained. Frank tried to track down the woman, whose name on the check was Karen Vincourt, but didn't have any luck. He then decided to wait and see if she would retrace her steps and come back. We decided we would hold on to the check for a couple of days to see if she would drop by, or if we could find her ourselves, he said. Elsewhere, Karen Vincourt, age 79, had been in a whirlwind. She was frenzied to call her friend, who continued to dig through the household garbage, realizing she had misplaced her address. Then Karen started retracing her steps. Next, she called the cafe across the street from Patsy's, where she had stopped earlier that morning for coffee. Then she tried to call the pizzeria, but came across confused. She said she'd called Patsy's and no one knew anything about a search. The real estate broker, Vincourt, said in an evening. I didn't quit thinking maybe she'd named the wrong one. It turned out that the $424,000 check was savings to Karen's future. She just sold her apartment, and the total was the money she intended to use on a new home as a down payment. She felt like her life crashed around her, and she got some shocking news when she called the bank to cancel the deposit. They said they couldn't cancel it right away because it was a cashier's check. I'd have to wait at least 3 months before they can even start the process, and if anyone hadn't cashed it in the meantime, Karen explained. Karen would have no home without this check. She'd live with friends, spending every night on a different couch. After Karen did not turn up at Patsy's to retrieve her check, Frank determined that it was time to seek qualified assistance. He called a local newspaper, and within minutes they were able to track her down. Karen got to the pizzeria just under half an hour later, and by the entrance Armando waited to greet her. Now did she feel bad she'd so rudely stiffed him? She was so proud she was in tears, Frank said, but she saw Armando the second. You could see she got a little nervous. She must have felt like a fool. At least she had the wisdom to reverse any of her misconduct by providing a finder's fee to the hard-working server and profusely apologizing for being so mean. Yet all were shocked by Armando's reaction. Armando accepted an apology from Karen but declined the money. I'm so happy for her, he admitted. Saturdays are pretty busy, and when I saw an envelope I was really close to taking everything left on the table and tossing it out. Karen and Armando made up over some hot pizza, and then Frank showed her the picture wall to make a point. He took her over and pointed out all the faces of women she missed that Saturday, including television host Barbara Walters, First Lady Chirlane McCray, and former City Council speakers Christine Quinn and Melissa Mark Veratero. Instead, he decided to do something else to bring the point home too. We laughed at her and said we were going to put her picture on the wall, he said, laughing. Yet, do you think Karen is going to think twice about leaving a mean message in the future for her server? Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks. We'll be right back to you as fast as we can.